Chiropractic, your brain and you. Hi, I'm Dr. Stephen Thane. I'm here today to talk to you about how chiropractic, how the adjustments that we perform literally influence the human brain. And I want to start this off by talking about some truths about the human body. The first truth is that the body is self-regulating and it is self-healing. And let me give you an example. I know every one of you have experienced this. You more than likely, when you were growing up, had a cut on your finger. And your mom put a Band-Aid on that cut, and she may have even kissed your finger. I would argue that the most powerful healing experience of all that was the kiss of your mother, helping that wound to heal. But here's the simple truth. You cleaned the wound, you put the Band-Aid on it, but the Band-Aid didn't heal you. Your mother's kiss didn't actually heal you. The body heals itself. There's an amazing process that happens with that simple cut. There is all sorts of hormonal and chemical processes that form a scab that stops the bleeding, that heals up the wounds, and all that happens without any influence from you thinking about it or doing it. As a matter of fact, if all that stuff didn't happen, you literally would bleed to death from that simple cut. Fortunately, our body has an innate wisdom, an innate healing ability, and it simply heals itself. Has anyone here ever had a broken bone? I did when I was growing up. Both the bones in my lower leg were broken. You know, the doctor, when I went to the hospital, they put it in a cast. The doctor didn't heal my bones. The cast did not heal my bones. Now they put them in place and the cast held it, but the body healed itself. The internal matrix, it laid down new bone matrix. As a matter of fact, the body secreted the proper amount of matrix to seal and to bind that gap together. And when it got healed up, it stopped. That all happens without any thought process from any of those actions. The body is self-healing, it's self-regulating, it knows how to heal itself. And that's one truth of the human body. Now, the second truth is that the brain and the nerve system are the master controller. You see, your brain and nerve system controls, regulates, activates, stimulates, monitors, correlates every single function of every cell, of every tissue, of every organ, of every system in your body. It is an amazing orchestration that happens. And this all occurs through the nervous system. Your brain is this unbelievable Houston control, this center of just incredible knowledge that takes care of all of these trillions of interactions. And that happens when there is no interference in that system. Now, I'm going to teach you a new word, and the new word is syllogism. And what syllogism means is it's a conclusion that can be derived from two different truths. And since we know truth one is the body is self-healing, is self-regulating, and truth two is that the master controller of the human body is the nerve system. The third conclusion we can draw from that is that if there's any interference in that system, the body will not be able to heal and regulate itself as effectively as it can. And this is where chiropractic comes in. Now, what I want to share with you is a study that was done in Denmark. And this study was done looking at how the brain is affected by the chiropractic adjustment. So let's delve into that study. So this is a research article, and this is exciting stuff. This is cutting edge of what's being done in regards to studies with relation to how chiropractic influences the human body. Now, I've got some highlighted sections here, and I'm going to read these. Now, a lot of this is really complex, and it's hard to understand, so I'll do my best to explain it so you can understand it. Now, the title, Manipulation of Dysfunctional Spinal Joints Affects Sensory Motor Integration in the Prefrontal Cortex. Wow, what a big pile of words that was. Let me try and break that down. Manipulation means adjusting the dysfunctional spinal joints. That means joints of the spine that aren't moving properly. This is affecting sensory motor integration. It's affecting the input into the brain in the prefrontal cortex area of the brain. Now, I'm going to explain each one of these as we go through this. So let's pick up on this first section here. Over the past decade, there has been a growing body of evidence to suggest that neuroplastic changes occurs following chiropractic spinal manipulation. What does neuroplastic mean? It means the function of the nerve system. Now remember earlier we talked about how the nerve system is the master controller, so keep that in mind. With this study, we set out to utilize brain electrical source analysis to explore which brain sources are responsible for changes in N30 amplitude following a single session of spinal manipulation. Whoa, what are they talking about? They're saying they were looking at how an adjustment of the spine literally influenced the amplitude and function and communication processes in the human brain. Now, here's the study they did. 19 subclinical pain volunteers. They had reoccurrent spinal ache, pain, or stiffness for which the person had not yet sought treatment. So they had people who had a history of pain, but no treatment for it. By the way, this is done in the University Hospital in Denmark. Now, they put on these people a 62 scalp electrode device. So this device they put on their head had 62 electrodes on it. And they were monitoring and measuring what was happening in the human brain when they got their spine adjusted. The subjects were asked to attend 3 sessions. A screening session for inclusion and exclusion, and criteria was followed by the 2 experimental sessions, a control and chiropractic in random order. So they came to 3 sessions, 1 to determine were they a candidate, and in 2 where they got an actual chiropractic adjustment, and another session where they got a fake or a sham adjustment. And by the way, they did those last 2 in random order, so people didn't know which one was which. Subjects were excluded from the study if they had any of the following that were true. No evidence of spinal dysfunction was present. So in other words, their spine was functioning fine. They didn't have any issues. Then, of course, they were excluded. They were in current pain. So these people, if they were in pain, they weren't allowed in this subject or this at the time. They had sought previous treatment for their spinal issues, or they had a contraindications to receiving spinal manipulation. So there were a lot of people that were excluded. They only had specific criteria that they could be included in the study. They were were deemed necessary by a registered chiropractor with 15 years of clinical experience. Now, as the subjects in this study were naive to chiropractic, they'd never seen a chiropractor before, they were provided a sham treatment for one of the sessions. One of the investigators, who was not a chiropractor, therefore simulated a chiropractic treatment session. So it made this a true blind study where people didn't know whether they were getting the true adjustment or not the true adjustment, and they removed even the chiropractor so that the person doing it couldn't accidentally maybe adjust them. Here were the results. Upon questioning after both sessions were conducted, and despite the subjects being totally naive to chiropractic, the majority of the subjects guessed correctly in which session they received the actual spinal manipulation and which was the sham. Now, when asked why they were sure the session was real, the majority know that they could feel the chiropractic session actually changed the way their body felt and functioned. So they literally felt that something was different with that adjustment. And you're going to see why here in a moment. Now, as we continue on, there was a significant post-intervention difference between the 2 groups. What was that difference? Well, the study resulted in 2 major findings. Firstly, the study reproduced previous findings of SEP, which is somatic evoked potentials, in studies that have been done that show that adjusting dysfunctional spinal segments alters early sensory motor integration of input from the upper limb, as evidenced by decreased in N30 SEP complex amplitudes. Wow, what does all that mean? Basically, they show that when there's dysfunctional segments in the spine and a chiropractor adjusts you, it literally changes the electrical impulses that occur in the brain and therefore alters the function of the human brain. Now, the second major finding, and this is really cool, was that they were able to show using dipole source localization that the change in this sensory motor integration that occurred after the adjustment predominantly happened in the prefrontal cortex area of the brain. I'm going to share with you why that's a really relevant issue a little bit later on. So, the change in prefrontal cortex, as seen in this study, therefore suggests that the altered input from the dysfunctional joints leads to altered processing of somatosensory inputs. This can influence somatosensory information in the prefrontal cortex. So what they're saying is when the spine's not moving properly, it literally influences the prefrontal cortex area of the brain, the information that the brain is interpreting and how the brain responds as a part of that interpretation. Chiropractic care, by treating the joint dysfunction, appears to change processing in the prefrontal cortex. This suggests the chiropractic care may as well have benefits that exceed simply reducing pain or improving muscle function, and may explain some of the claims regarding made by chiropractors. You see, for years, chiropractic has been saying we're far more than just influencing back and neck pain. Yes, we're very good at that, But when you get adjusted, we're literally influencing the nerve system. Remember that chart I showed you? That the master controller of the human body, every cell, every organ, every tissue, every function. If we're influencing the spine where there are dysfunctional joints and we're influencing the brain, we are literally impacting how your body processes and how it functions. So in conclusion in this study, the study has reproduced previous findings and shows that adjusting dysfunctional spinal segments alters the input. It also expands on the finding that this change occurs in the prefrontal cortex. Hence, the mechanism behind pain relief following spinal manipulation in low-level pain patients are likely due to improved sensory motor input and appropriate motor control, as this is the key function of the prefrontal cortex. So let me break that down. What we know is that our spine is highly innervated with special kind of nerves. Now, by the way, when I went to school back in the early 80s, a lot of this information I'm sharing with you, we really didn't understand fully. We have learned that there are 3 special kind of nerves. They're called mechanoreceptors. They're sensitive to stretch, pressure, and motion. And our spine is just massively, densely innervated with these type of nerves. And when the spine is moving properly, it's sending an enormous amount of information to the prefrontal cortex area of the brain. When there is dysfunction in the spine, it influences these mechanoreceptors, and that influences how the brain interprets things. That lack of information, that interpretation problem in the brain, causes a processing problem which results in a change in the muscular control and function around the spine. And this is what leads to having back and neck pain. So when a chiropractor adjusts you, it influences how that process functions, and therefore muscles and joints start functioning properly again. But what I'm going to teach you in just a moment is how that area of the brain influences so very much more. All right, so what does chiropractic do for you? Well, I want to show you an analogy here. And the analogy is a food processor. Now, what does a food processor have to do with chiropractic? Well, let me explain. I have a good friend. He's a chiropractic colleague. He's located in Miami, Florida. And he told me that he makes an amazing daiquiri. As a matter of fact, he shared that he does incredible daiquiris. Now, how does he do this? He has a special food processor. And by the way, the daiquiri is known as the granddaddy of rum cocktails. Well, what we know about food processors is, yeah, they can make a killer daiquiri, but did you know that they can make soups and sauces and hummus, and they can slice and they can dice, and you can make dough, and you can make all sorts of things with a food processor. Now, it's neat that you can make a killer daiquiri, but all those other things, those are the really special things that it does. That's just like chiropractic. We can help people with back pain and neck pain, and that's really cool. But the best thing it does? It influences your health. It influences the respiratory, the digestive, the endocrine system, the immune system. Chiropractic can help your body to function so much better, so more effectively. It literally can change your life. So let's go back to my first slide again. Remember the 2 truths and the syllogism. First, the body is self-healing and self-regulating. Secondly, the master controller of the human body is the brain and nerve system. And from that, remember, we determined that from those 2 truths, that we conclude that if there's any interference in that master nerve control system, that the body will not be able to function and regulate as healthy as it could or should. Now, let's take a look at this prefrontal cortex. What is the prefrontal cortex? Well, it is the executive functioning area of our brain. It's made up of several key components. There is the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the anterior cingulate, and the orbital medial prefrontal cortex. And these 3 areas have different functions and roles in the area of executive function, evaluating your behavior, and also in social and emotional response too. All right, so prefrontal cortex, what are some of the things that it impacts? Well, first, decision making, memory and attentiveness, spatial awareness, eye movement and control, emotional responses, goal-oriented tasks, increase in sensory motor function, better joint position and sense, our muscle strength and coordination, and here's the key thing, autonomic function. You just feel better, you function better. Now, let me hit key on that point of autonomic function. What exactly is that? When I say autonomic function, autonomic is the part of our body, the system that is running and regulating without you thinking about it. Your lungs. You go to sleep at night, you don't have to remember to breathe, fortunately. Otherwise, you'd wake up dead in the morning. Your body automatically does it, and it's the autonomic nerve system that's controlling that. Your endocrine system, your respiratory system, your digestive system. All of this stuff is functioning, and it is the autonomic nerve system that influences and controls that. And guess where that's happening in? The prefrontal cortex area. The area that chiropractic influences dramatically, as was demonstrated in that study in Denmark. Now, the prefrontal cortex is also an area that's richly innervated or influenced by something called dopaminergic neurons. Now, dopaminergic neurons, this is an area in the midbrain where there's a source of something called dopamine. Now, dopamine is associated when it's lost in patients that suffer from Parkinson's. Now, dopaminergic neurons play an important role in the control of multiple brain functions, including voluntary movement and a broader way of behavioral processes such as mood, reward, addiction, and stress. So I'm not saying, by the way, that chiropractic is going to cure Parkinson's, because it's not. But what I am saying is this. We know with the human brain, if you don't use it, you lose it. Every time a chiropractor is adjusting you, he's influencing and dramatically lighting up that prefrontal cortex. And that helps that area to function more effectively. That area is rich in dopaminergic neurons, and that helps to influence dopamine. By the way, selective degeneration of these dopaminergic neurons in the substantia nigra leads to Parkinson's disease. We want to be keeping that area of our brain functioning well. That's why it's so important to keep the brain active and functioning. And by the way, chiropractic massively influences that process. And I always like to share this one story. I had a patient. She's been with me for about over 20 years. She saw a colleague of mine a few years before that. But she shared with me, she's in her mid to late 60s. And she shared, I was doing this presentation to her with a group of other people, and she raised her hand and she said, this is interesting. Everybody in my family suffers from that. My mother, my aunt, my sister. She goes, I've been getting adjusted for almost 30 years, and I'm showing no signs. Do you think that might have an influence? Now, I can't say that it does or it doesn't, but what I can tell you is this. If you don't use it, you lose it. We influence the human brain. It is going to function more effectively. And there's a lot of anecdotal issues just like hers, where it seems that these people who get adjusted regularly are just much healthier than those who don't. Now, one thing I do want to talk about is understanding the curves of the spine. Our spine is not supposed to just be straight. Now, from the front view, yes, it is. We want the ears level, the shoulders level, the hips level. So the spine should be ideally straight, but from the side, there are curves. We have a forward curve in our neck. By the way, one of the first things you do as an infant, you lift your head and your neck and you form a curve in your neck. And then before you walk, you crawl, you form a curve in your lower back. So from the side view, there's supposed to be a forward curve in your lower back, a backward curve in your middle back, and a forward curve in your neck. Your spine is like a big S. It's like a big spring. When we lose that curve in our neck, which comes from too much fingers are playing, texting and computer playing and video game playing and sitting at our desks all the time, that is causing a loss of curve in the neck, and that results in a loss of blood flow to the brain. They've showed that a straightened neck decreases blood flow by as much as 20%. We have an amazing device. It's called a Denerol, and by applying that, we can help to restore the proper curve in your neck. And there was a study done with this device that showed we were able to increase blood flow just by changing the curves of the spine. Hippocrates, the father of medicine, he lived 2,400 years ago. He once said, "Look well to the spine for the cause of many diseases." When our spine starts to dysfunction, when we lose the curves, when it starts to not function properly, our health goes along with it. Now, question is, who do you know that can benefit from 20% better function in the brain and better blood flow to their brain? Well, that's pretty much everybody. My youngest patient was 40 minutes old. My oldest patient's 97 and a half. If you're somewhere in that range, I can help you. Chiropractic is not limited by age. No matter who you are, no matter what age you are, if there's dysfunction in the spine and we can remove that dysfunction, we can help your body to be healthier and help you to be healthier. You know, Thomas Edison once said, "The doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will interest his patients in the care of the human frame, in diet, and the cause and prevention of disease." You know, that's so true. And Thomas Edison was talking about, I believe, chiropractic. You talk about that. The doctor of the future, no medicine. Our mission in our office is to reduce the use of drugs and surgery. Care of the human frame, the mainstay of the human frame is the spinal column. Diet, the things and foods that we're putting into our body dramatically influence our health. As a matter of fact, the National Cancer Institute states that 70% of all cancer is from diet. Mainstay of the human frame, diet, and the cause and prevention of disease. I'll share with you there are 3 stresses that tear this human body down: mental stresses, chemical stresses, and physical stresses. As a chiropractor, we influence the spine, which deals with those physical stresses. It's causing disruption in function of the master controller. We talk about nutrition. We help patients and guide them, hopefully be able to deal with the emotional stresses. But those 3 things are what tear the body apart. Thomas Edison was right on. We need to start focusing on taking better care of us so our body can take better care of itself. I'd like to share a story with you about a tale of a boy and his father. Now, the father, by the age of 13, had multiple rounds of antibiotics, over-the-counter medications regularly, 4 to 6 times a year, had colds and flu every single year of his life, got allergy shots every couple of weeks, and then monthly. And he missed school quite a few times of the year when he was growing up because of illness. Now, the son, by the age of 18, never had an antibiotic, had taken 2 tablets of Tylenol in his entire life, no over-the-counter medications or other things beside that, and no history of any allergy shots. And I want to ask you the question, if genetics plays such a huge role, how could these 2, this father and the son, have such a huge difference in their life and what they've experienced in regards to their health? And I would propose to you, if you know the reason, the difference between these 2, it really comes down to one thing, and that was that one was raised in a chiropractic lifestyle and the other was not. And this is what chiropractic can do for someone. Now, I share that story with you because that tale is a story of myself and my own son. His life has been so different than mine when I was growing up. And it's because he's been raised since he was adjusted from the moment he came out of my wife's womb. So chiropractic has a tremendous influence, and he's living proof and example of that. So what I'd like to talk about now is taking a look at the scale of health and energy and the price. You know, I've been in practice for over 3 decades, and I'll share with you it always comes down to the value of someone's health versus the price that they have to pay. And I've learned that there's 2 things that tilt the scale in the other direction. Those 2 elements are time and money. And it is interesting to me that when someone's health starts interfering in what's important in someone's life, they make the time, they find the money, they take care of themselves. But I would suggest and I propose to you that you actually put health as a top priority in your life. Because when your health is present, anything is possible. But when your health is absent, honestly, nothing else really matters. And I don't care what's important to you. I don't care whether it's spending time with your family or going hiking, doing all the different things you love doing in your life. If you don't have your health, you can't do it. And if you cannot do those things that are important and passionate to you, the juice of life is just not there. And I like to reflect back on a couple of very famous people, Steve Jobs and Paul Allen. These are 2 very famous and wealthy individuals. And you know that unfortunately they both left this earth way too young. And here's the thing I always share with people. They had all the money in the world. And no matter, even though they had all the money, they could not buy their health back. You know, our health truly is our most important asset. And we need to do everything we can to take care of it. And I encourage you to make those steps to put your health at a top priority. I'd like to take a moment right now to ask you, if there's someone you know, someone you care about, family member, friend, significant other, a relative, someone who's suffering, who have tried everything, done everything, but their health is just not there. If they've lost that passion and that juice in their life, please take a moment and send an email to me on the email listed on this screen. Share with me their name. And I will be more than happy to offer them the opportunity to come into my office. I will do a consultation. I will do an exam, and I will even take any necessary x-rays. And I'll do that for the price listed on this screen. I will do that for you as a gift to you for watching this and for taking the time to reach out to help someone else. So please take the time to send that email to me now to help someone you care about. Chiropractic, your brain, and you. This is where we started this discussion tonight. And I want to take you back to this screen where we talk about the truth. Remember, there are two truths: that the body is self-healing, self-regulating, that the brain is the master controller, and if there's interference in that master controller, it robs the body of its ability to heal and repair and care for itself. What chiropractic is truly about is helping you to be the best you that you can be. We will help with the back pain, we will help with the neck pain, but more importantly, we will help bring energy, vitality, and life back into your body so that you can experience all that you want to experience and do the things that you love to do in your life. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. I hope that it's been informational, educational, and I hope that you'll share this information with someone that you love and care about.